Hello and welcome to a Team More Robotics event recap. On August 16th, my dad competed with his plastic ant combat robot, Slice Serve, at Macro's Alex Richmond Rumble. This is the same event I just did a video on for Outpost 31, so I'll say again that it was a very well run event, and I enjoyed it a lot. Slice Serve is the plastic version of his full combat lifter Kick Serve, and after the durability it showed at its first macro event, we agreed that it makes more sense to keep running it as a plastic ant. Kick Serve and Slice Serve combined had been to 3 events, and across those 3 events had not gotten a single official win. So it was about time the Serve line of robots got a victory. Oh, I guess 4 events if you count Hive Hysteria. The design was the exact same as the previous macro because the main issue was my dad's inexperienced driving. He had a hard time consistently facing his opponent and wanted to improve on that for this one. His first opponent already didn't make things look good, as it was a rematch with Ultraviolet, who eliminated Slicer from the tournament at the previous event. It's a wide vert and a serious contender. After losing to him last time with the smaller lifter, my dad decided to switch to the tennis racket lifter to try something new, and because it looks cool. When the fight starts, the robot's forks keep each other at a distance until Ultraviolet flips Slice Serve. Already you can see the inexperienced driving being an issue when Slice Serve opens itself up to a hit on the side, which is all Ultraviolet needs to keep the pressure on and land more hits. Slice Serve finds an opening and flips both robots over, and then gets a nice little lift before getting pinned. Ultraviolet gets under again and gets a few more hits. He gets another short pin, and my dad makes some questionable driving choices and then brings the lifter into Ultraviolet's spinner, which throws Slice Serve back. Slice Serve gives his opponent some trouble with the forks, but ends up getting pinned again. The forks continue to keep both robots at a distance, but Ultraviolet eventually keeps flipping Slice Serve and hits him multiple times as the fight goes to the judges. Slice Serve lost the fight, but I think that might have been a better fight than the last time he fought Ultraviolet. The only damage was scratches in the paint. Now in the loser's bracket, Slice Serve would have to win or it would be out of the tournament. His next opponent was Sir Wedginold, run by Jude of RC Bot Barn. Sir Wedginold is a 4-forked, 2-wheel drive control bot that's a pretty terrifying opponent because it has so much reach and easily outreaches Slice Serve. I think a lot of robots were really worried about Sir Wedginold going into the event, so we weren't feeling the best about having to fight him. I don't remember why, but my dad decided to switch back to the claw-style lifter that hadn't been used since Motorama. When the fight starts, Slice Serve immediately gets to the side of one of the forks and lifts it up. He gets a pin, and when he releases, half of Sir Wedginold's drive is down, which would be a huge help. My dad goes for this perfectly executed attack, and then gets an actually great moment of control when he throws Sir Wedginold over his head and keeps him in the corner, gaining a lot of control. It happens again in the opposite corner, but when it's time to release, Slice Serve's opponent is stuck on top of him like a hat, but gets released late. There's another small lift, and my dad makes the smart decision to slow down and carefully line up an engagement so he won't just ride up the forks. He gets another pin, and when he releases, Sir Wedginold can't move enough to keep him from getting counted out, so even though half of Slice Serve's drive dies, Slice Serve gets the knockout victory, giving my dad his first ever win. I think Jeff was a little surprised by this one.
2-1, that is somehow a knockout!
So that fight went better than expected. It definitely helped that Sir Wedginold lost half of its drive early on, but still it was a well-driven win from Slice Serve. Sir Wedginold's winner's pog is extremely cool. It has a little 3D printed replica of the robot on it, and it's a great little trophy. Slice Serve's next opponent in the loser's bracket was Squishy, with 2 Ys. Squishy has a small vertical spinner, and it's made mostly out of TPU, the same material used for Slice Serve. I'm assuming this is why it's called Squishy. It has long forks that could be a problem, but the small spinner shouldn't be too much of an issue. This seemed like it could be a pretty even fight for Slice Serve. When the fight starts, Squishy does a great box rush, and then the robot's forks keep each other at bay. Squishy gets the upper hand from the side, and Slice Serve decides the corner is the enemy, then Squishy gets under Slice Serve again before Slice Serve gets a lift and pin. Squishy has some issues driving, and Slice Serve takes this opportunity to get another nice pin. The release involves Slice Serve throwing Squishy over its head. Squishy's asked to show motion, and it moves enough to require Slice Serve to go in for another lift and pin. Squishy gets Slice Serve back in the corner, but Slice Serve doesn't like that and goes back to being in control. The last moments of the fight see Slice Serve picking Squishy up where he gets stuck on top of him, who isn't able to release despite all the waggling. Then the fight goes to the judges. Unsurprisingly, Slice Serve got its second victory here, and would continue in the loser's bracket. Squishy's winner's pog was definitely not as innovative as Sir Reginald's, but my dad still keeps both of them in his Slicerve travel container. With this win, Slicerve was guaranteed at least an even 2-2 record, and with who he was fighting next, that record looked like it was the most likely outcome. It was Ignis, the robot that took out Outpost 31 in the previous round of the tournament. It's a vertical spinner lifter hybrid, and it's one of the top contenders in plants on the East Coast. I think it's actually ranked like 2 or something in robotcombatevents.com. This was not a favorable matchup, but it would be a great test for Slicerve's durability. When the fight starts, Ignis does a great box rush and then follows that up with more hits, and there's a lift and more hits and another. Lars' driving is so aggressive it's actually really difficult and honestly kind of pointless to recap Ignis fights the way I usually do. Somehow Slicerve manages a pin by backing up into Ignis wheel first, and then Ignis flips itself, but self-right's too quick to capitalize on. For the sake of repetition and my sanity, I'm not going to talk about nearly every exchange like I usually do, but I do like this moment where Slicerve gets stuck on the lifter for a moment and Ignis just kind of stares at it and waits. There are more and more hits, and Ignis flips itself off of Slicerve, so I guess that's something. The whole rest of the fight is the same thing, and I still don't want to recap this all in detail, so here it is sped up. In what I imagine was a very close judge's decision, Ignis defeated Slicerve and eliminated my dad from the tournament. I swear a Team Warrior Robotics robot will beat Lars Elliott one day. Slicerve not only lasted the full fight, but it took no damage whatsoever, proving that it takes a lot to kill this robot. And credit to Lars for driving so well that I couldn't even be bothered to recap the fight. Slicerve was out of the tournament, but there were still some rumbles that it fought in. In the first rumble, Slicerve fought me with Outpost 31, Typlant, Squishy again, half of Omega Cancerinator 5000, the Captain, Crambulon the Almighty, GoobTube, Shul Shagana, and Redacted. I know I already talked about this rumble in the last recap, but I focused specifically on what Outpost 31 did, so now I'll focus on Slicerve. When the rumble starts, Slicerve joins in the mega pin and suplexes the Captain out of the way, before he comes in from the backside for revenge. Slicerve lifts Outpost 31, and then gets stuck in the corner for a bit, but it's able to flip the Captain again. After some fighting with the wall, he gets bounced around by Redacted and flings Omega Cancerinator. Typlant gets some hits in, and a wheel comes off screen, but I don't remember what really happened that made it come off. Slicerve struggles to do very much with one wheel, and it ends up on top of Shul Shagana. It picks up Typlant, then goes back to having a hard time staying in the fight, and eventually starts spinning in place. The Captain hits it around, and then the rumble ends. Slicerve also fought in a second rumble, where it teamed up with fellow plastic ants to take on the plastic beetle weight, or pleatle weight, chromatic aberration. He teamed up with Outpost 31, Typlant, GoobTube, Shul Shagana, and half of Omega Cancerinator 5000. When the rumble starts, Slicerve fights the wrong robot and then hangs out in the back for a while before the Pleatle just happens to run into the corner right where Slicerve is. He lifts the 3-pounder and pins him while the other drivers get really excited. Chromatic Aberration quickly gets back at Slicerve. He takes his time and doesn't do very much until Slicerve lifts Outpost 31 into the Pleatle's weapon, which flips both of us. He takes another hit and avoids getting hit too hard. The wedge part of Omega Cancerinator 5000 gets a pin, but can't release, so Slicerve pulls an incredible move. He gets underneath the wedge and perfectly lifts it out from under the Pleatle, replacing it for a pin. Slicerve high centers Chromatic Aberration again, and does some lifting while Typlant comes in for a hit. Then he completely picks the Pleatle up with the lifter, and the other drivers are impressed by how well Slicerve's doing. He maintains full control and delivers the Pleatle into Outpost 31, and we both slap him in the corner. Slicerve takes some mild hits before the rumble ends. So that went shockingly well as Slicerve kinda dominated. Chromatic Aberration did do some nice damage to one of the fork pieces, as well as some minor scrapes. This fight is one of my dad's favorites so far, because he reminds me pretty often that he pushed the beetle. He calls himself the self-proclaimed King of the Rumble now. That was Slicerve's last fight at the event, and overall it did pretty well and got its first 2 wins. It proved that it's extremely durable, and it hasn't been knocked down in any of its fights. The next video should be something a little bit different in time for Motorama, but anyway, thank you for watching this event recap for Slicerve. Actually, wait, I went on robotcombatevents.com and saw that Macro started to log the points robots got at their summer events, so I checked SliceServe, and for some reason it didn't say that it competed at the Alex Richmond Rumble. I went to the page for this event and realized that this is because the name was misspelled in the bracket as SylvieServe. This is fine because it wouldn't have actually gotten points anyway. This also explains why every time SliceServe was about to fight, SylvieServe was called to the box. Okay, this is the actual end of the video now.